listening to the Ringside Renaissance Wrestling Podcast.
Ringside Renaissance. I'm Kevin alongside Andy and Jesse, and today is just open discussion, talking about tag teams and whatnot. Things we love, continuing that trend of open discussion. So without further ado, we're going to get into our favorite tag teams and talk a little about them. I'll start it off real quick just by saying I'm going to start off hot and go Hart Foundation.
Ooh.
Ooh. Yeah.
Now, which Hart Foundation are you talking? Bret Hart and Jim the
Brett
Anvil?
And Brett and Jim.
Yeah. Okay.
100%.
Very good.
Natalia's daddy, right?
Yep.
Yes.
And, I think tag team wrestling is such an art form if it's done correctly. And Hart Foundation epitomized that. They had the smaller tactician, Bret Hart, and they had the big bruiser, Jim the Anvil Neidhart.
They complemented each other perfectly, if you ask me.
Yeah. And that was a group that started out as heels and just from their work in the ring turned babyface.
Exactly.
Like fans saw what they were doing and recognized that the skill and their capability in the ring and got them over organically.
Right.
And that's where Bret got his start too, right?
Yeah.
As a tag team. And then he was so good in that he got his solo runs.
Yeah, WWF. Yeah. He wrestled in Stampede with his dad back in the 80s when Stu Hart owned Stampede Wrestling, and then he went to WWF after that. But man, oh man, they brought in a lot of attention to up and coming tag teams who became solo wrestlers, like the Rockers. When the Rockers came in, and Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, they had matches with Bret and Jim that were really good. And Shawn Michaels obviously had the career he had, and like I've mentioned before, Bret can make anybody look good in the ring. So
yes,
that was
he's one of those in-ring technicians that just
one of the goats.
100%.
What's the next one, Kev?
Next one, I got the Legion of Doom.
Ooh.
Road Warrior, Hawk, and Animal. R.I.P. to Hawk.
And
it'll forever be a sad moment when that happened. But the shows that these two put on, their entrance alone, like. We're talking about a day and age in pro wrestling where entrances weren't as flashy and as cool as they are now.
Yeah.
But they always managed to have one of those fire entrances.
Yeah.
Legion of Doom.
They were exciting. I mean, wasn't too many teams that could beat the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors, and make it look believable. I mean,
yeah. They
were just two big guys that were going to beat the shit out of them.
A lot of the tag teams for that time period weren't the biggest, scariest guys. I think their war paint they would wear, the shoulder pads with the spikes, that just added to the mystique of these guys are fucking badasses that you don't want to fuck with.
Definitely.
And it was cool. Like, I don't know if you guys, they might have it on Peacock now. They had a Road Warriors documentary. WWE did that I had back in the day. I actually had Road Warrior Animal and Paul Ellering sign the sleeve of it when I met them. So they were they knew each other from childhood. They grew up in towns near each other. They played football against each other. And then they ended up bouncing at a bar together and ended up becoming pro wrestlers together. So they came up in the business together. It wasn't like a tag team thrown together that worked. Right. They truly were friends that grew up in the business together.
Which gives great in-ring chemistry.
Yeah, great chemistry. Iconic look. Their finisher was awesome.
Oh my God, yes.
Look at tag teams to this day still try to emulate them. I mean, They had Demolition came out, which was kind of a cheap knockoff. The Warrior and Barbarian when they wore the face paint.
Going back into how people use their finishing move, look at the Creed brothers. They do a version of that off the top rope when they do it.
The Crippler Creed.
The Creed Crippler.
The Creed Crippler.
But number 3 on the list, I got to go with the brothers, man. The Hardy Boys. I can't think of, maybe excluding the most recent years of their career with AEW, I can't think of a bad match that the Hardy Boys would put on.
Yeah.
Especially Jeff. Jeff was a technician with those high-flying maneuvers. The Whisper in the Wind is still one of my favorite moves. How he used to do it when he would just run at the turnbuckle and run up it and then flip off of it. Yeah. Like nowadays, you see him take his time, climb, and then do it, which kind of, to me, takes away from the move now, but back then, dude, the Hardys were unbeatable. They went to every promotion, indie included, and won the tag team gold.
Except for AEW.
Except for AEW.
got
But
buried
that's
in
just because their
AEW.
age. That's just the age showing in
Well,
Jeff.
they're a victim of Sammy Guevara knocking them out.
Oh,
Multiple times.
Both of them.
Yeah.
Sammy Guevara fucking put both of them on a fucking shelf at different points.
That clip of them flipping him off in the ring will live rent free in my mind forever.
The Hardy Killer.
Really,
Yeah.
he's probably responsible for half of Jeff's fucking issues.
I don't know. I think he was
I don't know
drinking
about
long
that,
before
but-
that. Yeah.
Well, I also blame them continuing to try to put Jeff Hardy in these moments where he has to destroy his body.
Yeah, well, they had the ability to reinvent themselves too when they had Broken Matt Hardy and Willow, and Broken
was
Matt
great.
Hardy
I
was
loved
so
Willow.
good. I don't think it transmitted over to WWE very well, but
Well, no,
when
because
it was
if they
in
would have been
TNA,
able
it
to
was
use
very
the term
groundbreaking.
broken. It was very groundbreaking.
Yeah.
But then they transitioned WWE, and then it's woken Matt Hardy. That right there just made it different. You
And
know?
when you go to WWE, you give up a lot of your creative freedoms. I think TNA, they
Right.
kind of had the freedom to move around and do what they were doing with it.
Yeah.
And they tried recreating it in WWE with 100 writers telling them what to say and what to do. It just didn't translate very well.
Exactly.
But yeah, Hardy Boys are right up there, man.
My
Yeah.
number 4, we're getting close to the end here.
Mhm.
Rock and Sock Connection.
Mm.
It wasn't the longest tag team run, but it was fun while it lasted, you know?
Yeah.
Mhm. It was good, man. It was a lot of rockin' Mick Foley stuff. It was priceless. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very good. The Rock, This Is Your Life thing they did when
Yeah.
he had the fucking clown come out. And have you had that on your hand the whole time?
Yeah. I've been waiting.
yeah.
Really?
Actually, it's been on my foot the whole time. So now it's extremely sweaty.
Oh,
So it'd be
just
even better
just
to-
how Mick likes it.
Yeah. It'd be even better to stick in somebody's mouth right now.
Ah.
Pause.
It's better than coming out of Mankind's fucking sweatpants after
Fucking
a whole
jock.
match.
Yeah, that's true. It's a little better, probably.
I mean, there's better places you could have put it. I mean, but
Yeah.
And real quick, my last tag team, it's one group, but it's split into 2 tag teams. I had to do it because I love all sides of this group and the teams. D-Generation X, Triple H and Shawn Michaels, but also the New Age Outlaws with the Road Dogg Jesse James and the badass Billy Gunn. Each mirrored each other perfectly, even when they were separate. Like, I love DX, I love the New Age Outlaws. I had to put that together.
I think we all, from that era especially loved both sets of those tag teams, and at another time we'll talk about our favorite factions too, which would have to be up there probably on everybody's list, but
Oh, for
who
sure.
doesn't love the New Age Outlaws?
it was so good. And the way they built them, they put them together. I think it was, what was it, Rockabilly and the Road Dogg, because he was the roadie at first for Jeff Jarrett. He was his little flunky guy.
Mhm.
Yep.
And then went out on his own. And then, they had Honky Tonk Man, had Rockabilly, and then they beat up Honky Tonk Man and became the tag team. The crowning moment for them was WrestleMania. They were together a lot longer after, was WrestleMania 14 when they had the dumpster match with Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie.
Yeah.
And because at that point they were just goofy little goofy guys like getting little fucking sneaky wins. And even though they didn't win that match that night, it established them as being able to be tough guys, to be able to hang with the hardcore legends. And was
You
a really
better
fun
call
match.
somebody.
Oh, so good.
Such
That
a great
was so
intro.
good.
Yeah.
Oh, fucking phenomenal. The Road Dogg doing and introducing, and then Billy Gunn with Sean's line. We got 2 words for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was good, man. It was good. And that was another example of, you got the smaller guy in the ring, and then you got the big bruise. Billy
Right.
Gunn was always just a big guy.
And let's face it, no crowds got into entrances more than they did for DX.
Mm-hmm. That was.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It was
It
cool
always
back
will.
in the Attitude Era when they would have one person hold up a letter for each thing, and they would have the whole intro to "Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls," and they'd have all wrapped around the arena of people holding up these signs. I was like, man,
Yeah.
that's commitment right
And
there.
then you hear the crowd echoing because they're saying it with them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, even, I want to say it was maybe Raw 1000 or one of the Raw anniversary ones where they had all of DX, and then you had the New Age Outlaws cutting their intro.
Yeah.
And you could just hear the crowd more than you could hear Jesse doing it.
Mhm.
Right.
And
Yeah, their
to me, that's
comedy-
beautiful.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And their comedy was great. Even in the ring, they were great too. They had great chemistry and
Mhm.
they could put on a great match, as you said, Jesse.
Yeah,
One of
even
my-
when they were heels, like you wanted to see them get their ass beat. They had a classic feud with the Road Warriors, and and you just wanted to see the Road Warriors kick the shit out of them. Like it was just they when they teamed with Shawn and Triple H before they were officially in DX, and they beat up the Road Warriors and shaved their mohawks off, and it was like, holy shit, dude, they're gonna get theirs. Like it was they that was a way to get heat for sure. They did really well with it.
And DX led the charge as far as the Monday Night Wars went, like the invasion. That's a moment that will never die.
Shawn Michaels and Triple H in a tag team together. Two of arguably the best of all time on a team. Doesn't get any better than that.
Not for nothing, DX runs the WWE now.
Yeah.
Think about it. Shawn runs NXT. Triple H is running WWE. Like, they literally have D-Generation X running things now. I just think that's ironically great.
Yeah, and you have the Ass Man, you know, that went to AEW and teamed with the Acclaimed, the whole scissoring thing, which pretty much rebranded itself from D-Generation X, which was great. And before he was in D-Generation X, he was in this group called the Smoking Guns.
Smoking Guns.
And they were a huge tag team, you know, these cowboys, and they were pretty great too.
Yeah. You know, it's funny, when I used to have all the action figures and shit when I was a kid, and like, I love the Smoking Guns, but I never could find Smoking Guns action figures. So I bought two cowboy action figures, and I had them in my ring. They were the Smoking Guns. And Bart Gunn got knocked the fuck out by Butterbean, and no one's seen him since. So
I do have one honorable mention team, and that's a team from TNA that I genuinely loved because half of that team went to WWE. I'm talking Beer Money.
Robert Roode and
Cowboy James Storm. Like, they had great chemistry together. And when Rude went to WWE, I know a lot of people were really clamoring for James Storm to follow suit, so you could have WWE's version of Beer Money. Unfortunately, that never happened. Pretty sure Rude is still employed with WWE.
Yeah, he's a producer now or something,
I
believe. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, good. I mean,
it's glorious.
Glorious.
Yeah.
I won't give in.
Right. So, if I was to talk about my top 5 tag teams of all time, my favorite, I would probably, at the top of the list, I would go the Dudley Boys. Get the Tables. We seen a big shout out from Bubba at WrestleMania, being the guest referee. And then Bubba and Devon going back to ECW were great, made the name for themselves huge. And when they came over to WWE with the tables matches and the feuds they had with the Hardys and Edge and Christian, just put them over. Had some of the great tag team moves together with the What's Up, the 3D through the table, just the 3D in general. We always wanted to do that move when we were growing to each other. They had some great taglines, great comedic moments, great chemistry, all around great tag team.
I remember us playing No Mercy on the Nintendo 64 back in the day, and we found out the buttons to press to do the 3D, and like that's just what we would just constantly, the whole match we were doing 3D. Yeah, they're really fun. And again, another tag team that won titles everywhere they went. Everywhere they went. I think they've won the most tag titles across all promotions, more than any other tag team. I'm pretty sure
they're the most decorated tag team.
Yeah,
and the 3D as a finisher was very protected.
Very protected. Yeah,
I mean, hell, it got even more protected when the Usos took it over into the 1D.
Yeah, that's true. And they've
that move
inspired.
Was protected up until what? The tag match at last year's Mania? When Sammy and KO were able to kick out of it. The crowd went nuts because up to that point, no one had kicked out of the 1D.
Yeah, so the Dudleys have, inspired countless tag teams to come in many different ways. And so would my next pick, and that would be the Brothers of Destruction.
Ooh.
Kane, the Big Red Machine.
That's a bold one to pick.
And the Undertaker. Who didn't love seeing these two giants in the ring together?
It took everything for me to not put them on my list.
As singles competitors, starting as enemies, with the story, of course, that was told, with Kane coming out from under the ring and being burned by the Undertaker. They grew into having this great chemistry, working with each other regardless, so that turned into them being in a tag team, and they had some great matches
the great mystique with Brothers of Destruction too was you look at it from the business side, but then you look at it realistically, if those two tagged up, like, you know, teamed up together, who was going to stop them? There was
Right.
nobody that could legitimately stop them in a fight, in a real fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Okay, pick you, and then pick the biggest or baddest guy you know, and would you even want to even say anything to those two, you know?
It's one of those moments where you just kind of lay down and let them pin you because you know they're going to fuck you up otherwise.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
two both supernatural characters ready to kick your ass, and they'd gone through their changes of their characters throughout the years and still be together. And then, yeah, it was great.
And on their own, one of the longest running, even though they were a team, even one of the longest running feuds like in WWF history. That
Kane
one
and
over,
Undertaker. Oh my
over
God.
10 years. Over 10 years, if they didn't have anything for themselves, they would go back to just feuding with each other, and everybody just accepted it. Like,
because it worked. They
right.
put on good work together. They knew how to move in the ring with each other well, and it showed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What else you got?
The Road Warriors, the Legion of Doom, again, because growing up, who didn't love them? The look, the style, the image. We already touched on it. No need to do it anymore. Same with the Hardy Boys. They'd be next on my list too, with the TLC matches with the Dudleys and Edge and Christian. And every little bit of everything they did was just so great. Iconic moves, everything. Lastly, I'm going to go with the Outsiders.
Ooh.
Hall and Nash.
Good call.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Good call.
Yeah. Being great in the ring and being great part of the clique in WWE as Razor Ramon and Diesel. And then going to WCW with these Monday Night Wars and showing up as the Outsiders. One of the biggest debuts at the time, and people didn't know if it was real. It blurred the lines with Eric Bischoff and showing up and then turning Hulk Hogan and making this huge faction of the NWO, which inspired countless and many others and groups. They were just great. And then coming back to WWE with Hogan as the NWO, Hall and Nash, of course, against Austin and The Rock and the whole WWE in general.
It was fantastic. And what's Scott Hall's quote?
Yeah, a couple of them.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Chico.
Hey, yo. Chico. Hey, yo, man.
Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
Yeah.
Oh, like when he died, that was such a sad moment. You could see the emotion on Nash's face when every time he talks about Hall. It was sad. He misses him. I think the world misses him. But
hey, yo.
The fucking toothpick flick.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, all that. So they had good chemistry in the ring, and they were just great on the mic and with creating controversy. So, hey, yo, Jesse, what's your top 5 tag teams, man?
You guys stole some of mine, so I got a list. So I'm gonna my top one that I'm gonna say that nobody's. I'm gonna go modern. I didn't put them in order, but FTR. Love FTR, man. Like,
that's a phenomenal pick.
Classic tag team wrestling, but they have a modern style of classic tag team wrestling, you know, and like we've said previously, they're both really good on the mic. They're both really good in the ring. They have abilities. Like, they've had matches with, name a few that they didn't have a good match with, you know what I mean? Or somebody that didn't have a good match with. The way they can work with any style in the ring.
Even their time in WWE is the Revival.
Yeah. I'm not a big Young Bucks fan at all. Everybody's got their own favorites, and it is what it is. You go back to, I don't remember, what was it, Full Gear, I think it was, when they faced the Young Bucks, or maybe Revolution, I don't remember, but to have a match with the Young Bucks and make their first match they had against each other, and to make the Young Bucks look so good. It was like the Young Bucks looked so good in that match, and it was, I think, a big credit to FTR on what they're able to do in the ring. Students of the game, you know, they study tag team wrestling history in general, and they understand it. They don't just come in because they could fucking do a back handspring and think they can become a professional wrestler. Number 2 on my list is an old school. Now we're going old school, and the Midnight Express with Jim Cornette managing. Midnight Express is so good, and you know, be able to get anybody over in the ring. They were dastardly heels. Everybody in the crowd or anybody that was watching wanted to see them get their ass kicked. And it wasn't go away heat. It wasn't, I don't want to see these guys. It's these guys are terrible and I want somebody to beat them. Like, and that's what you need as a heel. That's what you want. You don't want to come on the screen like I feel like the Young Bucks are doing right now and have people be like, oh, I don't want to see these guys. You want a team to come on the TV and say, I want to see these guys get their ass kicked.
Right.
And they were very good at that. So number 3 for me was originally Road Warriors, but I'm going to go down my list and say the Andersons, Ole and Arn Anderson. How do two guys that have no relation at all look like they're fucking related and have so much chemistry in the ring together and be able to work off each other and work it wasn't a gimmick, but to work a team the way they did? And when they got put with the Four Horsemen with Tully Blanchard and Ric Flair, you would think because Tully Blanchard was so over and such a star, Ric Flair was so over and such a star that the Andersons would just be kind of background, just kind of be like that extra, but they weren't. They were their own stars in their own right. Took over the tag team world at the time. And, the Four Horsemen, nobody was as dominant as the Four Horsemen back then. And Ole and Arn were just as much a part of that as I feel like Rick and Tully were. Number 4 was the Hardy Boys, but we spoke on that. So I'm going to go with my next one down the list and say, even though they had a short run, the Hollywood Blondes, Stunning Steve Austin and Flying Brian Pillman.
Ooh.
Damn.
So good. Stunning Steve Austin and Flying Brian Pillman were so good in the ring. And talk about two guys that they were put together because WCW had nothing for them.
Right.
So we're just going to throw you guys in a tag team. And for them just to not really ever work with each other and to make it work was like amazing. They went from wearing not matching trunks, not, knowing each other's styles, to wearing the matching trunks and having matching the necklace that Stone Cold Steve Austin wears to this day. Brian Pillman bought him for the Hollywood Blondes so they could have matching necklaces for the ring, just to see when life hands you lemons, you make lemonade. That's all I can think of with the Hollywood Blondes. And just when they were at their peak, WCW split them up, which I thought was not a good thing. The next one I'm going to go with is the Steiner Brothers. Rick and Scott Steiner.
That's a good one.
Rick and Scott Steiner were so good. And, they had their own single runs and stuff, but I'm talking early 90s WCW and WWF Steiner Brothers.
Classic.
Man, doing stuff in the ring that shouldn't be possible, and we spoke on it before. During NXT, Braun Breaker was up on Otis's shoulders, and Tozawa went to cross body him off his shoulders, and Braun Breaker caught him and turned it into a power slam off the shoulders. And that was an old Steiner Brothers spot from WrestleMania 9. Rick Steiner was up on one of the head shrinker's shoulders and did the same exact move, and just things like that. Being able to beat guys up in the ring while still protecting them, but make people believe like, holy hell, these guys are getting their asses beat. Like,
and their athleticism and their wrestling background,
amateur background, yep.
And Braun Breaker is a good mix of both the Steiners, if you ask me.
Is building his own name without having to rely on the Steiner name.
Yeah,
he's doing his own thing without having to. Everybody knows that he's got lineage, but it doesn't have to be built on this guy as this guy's son.
Right, he's making his own paths in this company and in the industry as a whole.
And the crazy stories about the Steiner brothers traveling with the Steiners and stuff that wrestlers talk about is absolutely phenomenal. Like going down the highway and Rick holding Scott's legs while he hangs out the window and trying to like rip open other wrestlers' doors while they're driving down the fucking highway, and like just crazy shit they used to do is absolutely hilarious. Like I love hearing the road stories from especially the Steiner brothers. I heard they were pretty wild. Yeah. And then my honorable mention is going to be
oh God!
I know the promo is going to get brought up when I say it, but Harlem Heat.
Oh yeah,
Harlem Heat, man, they were so good
for sure. Yeah,
Harlem Heat was so good, and
I agree.
Booker T had choice words for Hulk Hogan, but
yeah.
I mean, but,
as he should.
Harlem Heat was Hulk Hogan repeated that word later on in life.
Yeah, everybody's got choice opinions on Hulk Hogan now.
Yeah, he liked that promo too much and used it in future.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and rattle a few names on, but just to shout out these tag teams that I know we probably all loved or up to the current days that you have to respect, but it's like Owen Hart and the British Bulldog, the British Bulldogs, the New Day. If you even want to go with Better Than You, Baby.
Adam Cole and MJF together was phenomenal.
Right, and then you had the APA, the Acolytes.
Oh my God.
Too Cool, Scotty Too Hottie, and Grandmaster Sexy.
U.S.
wow.
Express.
US
Kane and
Express.
X-Pac. Yeah, the Head Shrinkers, the Nasty Boys,
The
Oh,
Usos.
the Nasty Boys. The
the
Usos.
Nasties.
We can't
yeah.
take nothing away from the Usos. They paved a whole different path for tag team wrestling.
The Briscoes,
Wow.
Oh,
Edge and Christian. We didn't speak
Mhm.
on them much, but you got to give them all the respect too with all those TLC
we talked
matches.
a lot
with
about
the,
Edge and Christian last week too, if you remember.
yeah, with the Dudleys and with the Hardy Boys.
Yeah.
An
a lot of
honorable
good.
mention is a joke. I'm gonna go with Cass and Enzo.
Enzo and Cass. Yeah, but they were over,
Yeah.
man.
They
Enzo and
were
Cass were
over.
over. And if you look back at early NXT, like Enzo and Cass against the Revival
Yeah.
That was a
rivalry
good
was
match. Yeah, the rivalry as a
the
whole.
whole rivalry was just phenomenal, you know, and
Yeah.
you needed those over the top bantering
Mhm.
baby faces to put down the heels to make it that much more animosity. It was really done.
Yeah.
Really well done.
They were
wow.
over. Yeah.
Tag team wrestling is fun when it's done right. I don't like when two guys are put together in a tag team and then they try to like mash their names or their gimmicks together. I'm gonna say this and it might not be, but rated RKO I did not like whatsoever. I thought that was just kind of they were at the
They
peak
were
of
just
their
thrown together. Yeah.
right. They were at the peak of their singles runs and
Yeah.
we're just gonna throw them together and try. I just didn't care for that too much. You know.
You know, another team that
The
I
Head
forgot
Shrinkers.
to mention as
Yeah.
an honorable mention from the early 2000s: Paul London and Brian Kendrick.
Jesus.
Mm. That's a
Paul
throwback.
London was a madman.
He
Yeah.
was a man.
Paul London was a fucking madman.
And
And
how
like
about the Gangsters?
the
Smoky
Gangsters.
Mountain Wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jim Cornette's
Controversy.
creation, man.
Yes,
Jim Cornette's
exactly.
creation. And it was
So
fucking
Yeah.
good.
So like you said, tag team wrestling can be a beautiful thing when it's done right.
I
So
just-
moving on. We have some
We got
great
our match suggestions.
for you guys.
What do you guys got?
I'm gonna say I'm gonna do a funny one this week because
Yeah.
it's just one of those matches that's so bad that you have to watch it. And at the time, like we talked about previously, like buying the pay-per-view tapes
Mhm.
and watching the pay-per-view tapes. And I remember Andy coming over with the tape of Armageddon. Was it 2002 or 2001? I can't remember. 2000 maybe. Armageddon 2000, I think it was, when it was the 6-man Hell in the
Yes.
Cell. And you had Triple H, you had Kurt Angle, The Undertaker, The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and the name of all names, Rikishi.
Rikishi.
And I remember going. So I watched that match about a year ago because when I saw Peacock had all of the old pay-per-views, I watched it thinking like, oh, this match was nostalgia from our childhood. And I
Right.
watched it and said, this match is fucking terrible.
And you thought
It's-
it would have been great too with the
Yeah.
build up and
Right.
if you just saw the match on paper, the card, it looked great, and even the art form for the VHS tape, it
so
looked
good.
freaking awesome. You know, on the motorcycles.
And at the time, it was like when we watched it, it was like that was 5 of our biggest, the wrestlers we liked the most, and Rikishi in a match. Like it was like I did it for The Rock, but it was like 5 of our top wrestlers of the time, all in a Hell in the Cell, which was one of
Right.
our favorite matches of all. You know, it was like this is going to be golden, and you know, it was just so over the top and hokey, and Vince McMahon coming out with the truck. Oh, I'm gonna tear this thing down.
Yeah.
Like you're not the owner of the company. You can't just call off a match if you don't want it to happen. Like, you
Right.
know, you got to bring a truck full of fucking hay out. Like
just so Rikishi can fall into
it. Yeah, you
off the
know.
cage.
On the most lackluster choke slam I think I've ever seen in my life.
But shout out to Rikishi for taking that bump though. Going flat backed backwards
Yeah.
and having to hit a spot
I am
just
right,
the
yeah.
the size of a truck bed.
Yeah.
If you go too far, your head's gonna hit off the cabin. You're pretty much done for. Like, you know, and
yeah.
just for him to fall off and take that bump and make it at the time, even now, that's a phenomenal bump.
They
you
must
know,
have had some big shocks, some good shocks in that truck.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was wild.
That
You know,
suspension held, man.
yeah, he had junk in his trunk too. Kurt Angle went in as the champion. He left as the champion.
Yeah.
And everybody thought like he was the marked man, and he was the marked man in the match. But to have established wrestlers like Stone Cold, who was champion in the past and one of the biggest guys, Triple H, who had been champion, The Rock, who had been champion and the People's Champion, The Undertaker had been doing it for so many years,
I'm the People's Champ.
and Rikishi, who I didn't buy into the storyline of he being main event, but him being in the company for so long and being relevant in the company for so long, and Kurt Angle was the young up and comer, and for him to come out on top in that match just, I think, put him over as like one of, if not the top guy of that period, for being able to come out of that match, which was so brutal, and still be the champion at the end. It really established him more as a main event guy, more than he had done already. And that wasn't. I have so many good matches written down, but for whatever reason, like in the speed, I just wanted to be funny and fucking just say that match, just because if anybody hasn't watched it, just go into it and just try to have fun with it.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Here's one that I don't know if anybody really remembers, sticking with the theme of the day being tag teams. These weren't designed tag teams by any means, but this match was phenomenal. I'm talking May 21st, 2001, Monday Night Raw, Stone Cold Steve Austin and Triple H versus Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit.
Okay.
The Canadian Chris's versus Steve Austin and Triple H for the tag titles. Fucking amazing, phenomenal match. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Those four men in a ring together. How could it go wrong?
They all had some great matches together. I know that, and tagged together. And Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit had great chemistry together against each other and with each other.
Yeah. I'm an advocate for Benoit's in-ring ability, as much as we're not going to really talk about anything else about him, but his in-ring awareness and his moveset and just the way he carried himself in the ring was phenomenal.
And the way they were building Austin and Triple H to be like a dominant tag team before Triple H blew his quad out, or I think it was his quad at that point. And because that was right after WrestleMania 17 when Stone Cold turned heel. And then Triple H, I believe, won the Intercontinental title right after, and then they were going to be the tag team champions and hold all the gold. It was exciting to see at the time, because what are they going to do with this, and where are they going to go with it? How far are they going to go with it? And unfortunately, it was short-lived, but ultimately that made for Triple H to be bigger than he was when he came back at the Rumble the next year after recovering and stuff.
Yeah, that's my match.
All right.
What you got?
We're going to go to Survivor Series 2001. 15th Survivor Series in 2001. Team WWF versus Team Alliance.
Wow.
Oh, my God.
It was built up to be probably the biggest match of all time with the biggest implications of all time. Team WWF was The Undertaker, Chris Jericho, Kane, The Rock, and The Big Show. Now, The Big Show took Vince McMahon's place. Vince McMahon was supposed to originally be in that match, but got hurt, as I later found out. I didn't know that at the time. Against Team Alliance, which was Stone Cold, Kurt Angle, Rob Van Dam, Booker T, and Shane McMahon. And they were led by Shane McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, and Team WWF was led by Vince McMahon and Linda McMahon.
Oh, God, Linda McMahon.
Yeah, and it was an elimination match, a Survivor Series type match. It was off of this whole invasion angle, which is when WCW and ECW was bought out by Vince McMahon.
Right.
And the kids kind of took control of that company. We had great commentary on that match by Paul Heyman and Jim Ross, and it was winner take all for the company. Whoever won was going to win, and the others were going to be put out of a job, and they were going to be fired. And talk about WrestleManias and all these other matches, when we talk about Spot Fest. This match was a total Spot Fest. Finishers galore, reverse finisher. It was almost like a whodunit match, too, with the promos leading up to it. Because we had heard that there was a mole, and who was going to be the mole?
Yep.
And who was the mole? It was Kurt Angle, being and doing the right thing and turning at the last minute. There were so many small little stories leading into this match with all the competitors, mainly between The Rock and Chris Jericho, which were the last two left. And Chris Jericho left The Rock in the ring to Stone Cold, and Kurt Angle comes in and turns, and the Team WWE, WWF wins. And even the shot of Paul Heyman's face on commentary when they lose, he didn't know what to do, and he sold it great, and it was just a great match and build going into it.
And looking at it now, like, we all knew Team WWF's going to win. Like, but at the time, especially in our younger years, I was 13 years old, and like, it was like, oh my God, Team Alliance might put WWF out of business, and it was like, it was just
like you had those little worries.
It was stressful at the time.
Yeah.
It was very stressful at the time.
That's what made it so beautiful, is because you really were like, what's gonna happen?
Yeah, is WWE really gonna end? Is this gonna be the end of it? What channel is it gonna be on? Who's gonna be in control of it? And it was a long match. It was 44 minutes long.
Yeah. And I was Team WWF growing up. I'd watch WCW, but I was Team WWF. And like, when they finally won and Vince bought the company and it ended up being Shane, or that whole angle they went with and stuff, like, it was like a sigh of relief, because the kids at school that were Team WCW, it was like, you go and you suck it, you tell them to suck. WWF won, and then it came down to the Survivor Series, and it was like, oh no, am I going to have to eat my words now? Like, it was very stressful, like you said, especially as a kid growing up as a fan, and knowing that it's a stage performance, but is it? Like, that's really when it's the most fun in pro wrestling. It's like, okay, is it? Everything else might be fake, but I think this is real.
The lines were very blurred for that.
Like recently, about a couple years back, when Riddle was having that feud with Rollins, and they had that videoed interview segment where Rollins came at Riddle saying that's why your wife left you and all that crap.
Yeah.
Like, I was sitting there like, oh.
Blurring the lines, man. All the best do that, Like I said before, if something's too gimmicky, I don't buy into it, because it's like, it's just them putting on a show. Like the EVP Bucks right now, they're just pretending to be like shitty bosses, and they're not selling it. They're just, you can tell they're putting on an act. Or like I said, like the over gimmicky supernatural stuff. Like, after a while, it's like, okay, like, okay, I can watch fucking The Exorcist. Like, I'm not here to watch The Exorcist. I'm here to watch, like, guys that I believe are real. Like, LA Knight. LA Knight's kind of a gimmick, but, like, you can believe, like, that's who he is in real life. You know what I mean? You can believe, like, that's just how he is in real life. Cody Rhodes, like, he's, like, the over-the-top baby face, like, the American hero, like, American Nightmare, but the American hero. But, like, you can see, like, that's probably how he is in real life.
And they made you believe it with that match, because they had both locker rooms of Team WWE and Team Alliance watching on, looking on, stressed out too, just as much as we were at home. And not only that, you had ref versus ref in the match for each company. You had Earl Hebner coming down and it going back and forth, and it was just great cinematics with it all together, and with the story. I just really enjoyed it. Looking back, it might be a little corny, but it was a great match back in the day.
I know they did it for the Invasion pay-per-view, but for the Survivor Series, did they have the separate entrances for WCW? And I don't think they did for the Survivor Series. But in the Invasion pay-per-view, when they had
the two separate
the Alliance,
ramps.
they had two separate tunnels, like AEW does. Like the WCW guys would come out one, and WWF would come out the other.
Yeah, that was great.
Which there was a really good match between Jeff Hardy and RVD at the Invasion pay-per-view. That I can go on with matches. Yeah, I can go on with matches all day.
Yeah. So summing up, episode 5, we talked about some great tag teams, and we talked about another great match we all loved, and gave some suggestions on that for all y'all and the fans, and for the discussions on all the social media platforms. And we really appreciate you guys watching and tuning in, and we hope so next time too. Next episode, we're going to talk about some of our top 5 heels, top 5 gimmicks, and we'd like some suggestions as far as what you guys want to see us talk about with that too.
Right. Like, just keep engaging us in the comments, guys. Tell us what you want to hear, and we will get into it. We're not going to shy away from anything. We're here to be truthful, honest, and entertain you guys. Like, I can't wait to get into that discussion next week. So stay tuned, everybody. Thanks again for joining. I'm Kev alongside Andy and Jesse. We are the Ringside Renaissance.